The galaxy of Aurelia had many wonders, but none so mysterious as the stories of humans. Among the species of this galaxy, humans were said to have been fierce, clever, and unstoppable. Warriors who could face impossible odds and survive. But they were also gone. Most civilizations believed humans had vanished long ago, leaving only myths, songs, and stories. Commander Illyra Voss of the Saren species had heard those stories her entire life. She had always found them entertaining but impossible. Humans were supposed to be emotional, reckless, and completely gone. How could they have survived the wars and disasters of the galaxy? Illyra was tall and silver-skinned, with eyes like polished moonstone. She had trained her whole life to trust reason, logic, and evidence. Myths were nice for children, but not for a commander of the Astra Veil, one of the most advanced exploration ships in the Concord. Yet something about the coordinates she was about to follow felt different. It began with a distress signal. The Astra Veil had been scanning the edges of the galaxy, a region where star charts were incomplete, and cosmic storms made travel dangerous. Among the routine signals, one stood out. It was old, ancient even, but faintly active. The source seemed to come from a dead zone, a system that had no life and no energy readings for thousands of years. Illyra studied the signal for hours. "It is unlike anything I have seen," she told her crew. "It is structured, purposeful. Someone or something intends to be found," the crew murmured among themselves. Lieutenant Terran, a young technician, frowned. "Commander, the records show this system was uninhabited. No life, no atmosphere, no minerals worth mining. Why would anything send a distress signal from here?" Illyra didn't answer immediately. She felt a strange pull, a mixture of curiosity and unease. "We are explorers," she said finally. "We do not ignore signs of life, no matter how old or unusual. Set a course. We leave at once." The journey was long. The Astra Veil passed through nebulae of glowing gases, past collapsing stars and across asteroid fields that looked like frozen fire. As they approached the coordinates, the dead system unfolded before them. A single planet, gray and lifeless, hung in orbit around a small red dwarf star. Its surface was scarred with craters, canyons, and structures that looked artificial. The crew gathered on the observation deck, staring at the planet below. "Ruins," said Illyra softly, almost to herself. "And yet, they are older than anything in our records." The ship landed near the largest of the ruins, a pyramid-like structure that jutted from the planet's surface like the finger of an ancient hand. The Saren sensors detected no life, but there was an energy signature deep within the ruins. Weak but definite, Illyra led her team down to the planet's surface. The air was thin, the gravity slightly lower than their calculations, but breathable enough for their suits. The pyramid was made of black stone, smooth and etched with markings no one could decipher. They were not Saren or from any known species. In the heart of the ruins, they found a chamber sealed with a transparent dome. Inside was a cryopod. Its surface was scratched and dusty, but faint blue lights pulsed slowly from within. Illyra's heart raced. "Commander," Terran said nervously. This looks like a life pod, but from what time? How is it still operational?" Illyra knelt beside the pod, scanning it with her tools. The readings were impossible. The pod's systems had remained active for thousands of years. Whoever was inside had been preserved perfectly. The crew watched in silence as Illyra initiated the unlocking sequence. The dome hissed, releasing a cloud of cool mist. Then slowly a figure stirred inside. It was human. Illyra gasped. She had seen depictions of humans in ancient records, tall, strong, with expressive faces, but nothing had prepared her for this. The figure stepped out of the pod with steady, calm movements. His hair was dark, slightly disheveled, and his eyes seemed to look right through time itself. "I am Kane," he said, his voice deep but measured. "Captain Adrian Kane, United Earth Forces." The crew froze. United Earth Forces? Earth? That planet had been destroyed thousands of years ago. Humans were myths, stories told to inspire bravery. And yet here he was, alive. Illyra felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. You're human," she said finally. "But that's impossible." Kane's lips curved slightly as if he had heard this disbelief many times before. "Many said the same," he replied. "I was preserved for a reason. I am here because the galaxy needs to remember." The crew exchanged worried glances. "Commander," Lieutenant Terran whispered, We don't know his intentions. He could be dangerous, Elira shook her head. Dangerous? Look at him. He hasn't harmed anyone. He just stands there. This is history, not a threat. Kane took a few steps forward, looking around the ruined chamber. He studied the walls, the markings, the faint traces of energy still lingering in the air. This place, he murmured. It was a last outpost. We fought here long ago. I remember the attacks, the evacuation. Earth, it ended here. Elira's mind reeled. Everything she had believed about humans was changing before her eyes. She had thought of them as myths, stories of bravery and recklessness. But this man, this Kane, was calm, measured, intelligent. He carried the presence of someone who had seen war, who had survived it and yet remained disciplined. Suddenly the ground trembled. Sensors on the ship detected movement, small mechanical drones rising from hidden chambers within the ruins. They had been dormant for centuries, programmed to attack intruders. Defensive protocols, Kane said almost casually. He moved with precision, directing Elira and her crew to cover points. With quick, coordinated actions, he disabled the drones, using only their own energy pulses to deactivate them. The crew stared, amazed. Commander, Terran said, awe in his voice, he just neutralized those machines. Without weapons, just strategy. Elira nodded slowly. The stories. They weren't wrong. Humans were warriors, not myths. As the team explored deeper, Kane guided them with knowledge none of them could have had. He understood the ruins, the technology, the traps. Every move was careful, deliberate, and effective. The crew began to realize that history had not exaggerated humanity's abilities. It had only forgotten them. By the time the team returned to the Astra Veil, the sun of the red dwarf star was dipping below the horizon. The gray planet below looked still and lifeless, but now it held a secret. A human warrior had returned. Elira watched Kane as he stood on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. She did not yet understand the full truth of his presence, but she knew one thing. The galaxy had forgotten humans, but humans had not forgotten themselves. And somehow, Elira knew this was only the beginning. Something had been awakened, not just in the ruins, but in the galaxy itself. The myths of old Earth were no longer stories, they were real. And the human warrior standing before her was proof. Elira took a deep breath. Captain Kane, she said softly, welcome to the conquered. Kane turned to her, a faint smile on his lips. Thank you, Commander. Now, it's time the galaxy remembered. The stars outside the observation deck twinkled as if they were listening. Somewhere far beyond the dead system, the universe waited for the return of a warrior who was more than myth. The Astra Veil sailed smoothly through the blackness of space, leaving the dead planet behind. Its engines hummed a soft song of power and efficiency, but within the ship, tension crackled like static. The crew had been quiet since Kane's awakening. Every glance at him carried unspoken questions. Who was he really? Could he be trusted? And most importantly, how could a human, a supposedly extinct species, survive in a galaxy that had long forgotten them? Commander Elira Voss paced along the observation deck. The stars outside were countless points of light, each one a reminder of the galaxy's vastness. She still could not fully believe what she had seen. Kane had stepped out of the cryopod as if waking from a deep sleep, and had immediately demonstrated skill, control, and awareness far beyond the crew's expectations. Commander, Lieutenant Terran said, breaking the silence. I've run the scans again. Everything about him is normal. Biologically speaking, he's alive, breathing, his brain activity is stable, but his combat skills, his reactions, they are remarkable. Elira nodded. Remarkable is one word for it. I would call it proof. Proof that humans were warriors and perhaps the greatest the galaxy has ever forgotten. Kane stood nearby, observing the readings silently. His dark eyes reflected the lights of the bridge, calm yet full of memory. He did not speak until Elira turned to him directly. Captain Kane, she said, I want to understand. Tell me about your people, about Earth, about the wars. I need to know what we've lost. Kane inhaled slowly, his gaze distant. Earth was a planet of struggle, like all worlds. But humans did not give up. We faced enemies that would have destroyed any other species. We fought with whatever we had, survived when others would have fallen. And we fell not from weakness, but because the galaxy forgot us. Elira's heart sank at his words. She had always believed humans were myths, stories to entertain children or inspire courage. But here was one standing before her, a living legend. "And now you are here," she said softly, "in a galaxy that does not remember you. Why awaken you now?" Kane's eyes scanned the bridge. "Because the threat that destroyed Earth, it is returning, and no one will believe the warnings until someone stands against it. Someone human." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. A threat returning? What could be worse than the dangers of space they already faced? Yet Kane's confidence was unwavering. He spoke with the authority of someone who had seen wars beyond imagination, fought battles that required courage and cunning in equal measure. Before Elira could ask more, the ship's alarms blared. Red lights flashed and the control panels buzzed urgently. "Unknown vessels approaching fast," Terran shouted. "They're not on our charts. Too fast for regular ships." Elira's eyes narrowed. "Pirates?" "Not exactly," Terran replied. "They're signatures. They're ancient, pre-conquered designs, almost like relic ships." Kane stepped forward, his movements calm and precise. "Show me their positions," he said. Within moments, he had analyzed their formation, predicted their paths, and pointed out weak points in their approach. "They rely on speed and confusion. Their weapons are old but dangerous if underestimated." Elira nodded. She had seen many battles, but she had never witnessed someone so quickly assess a situation, calculate outcomes, and devise a plan in moments. Kane's presence radiated authority. The crew began to feel a strange confidence in his commands. "Prepare defensive measures," Elira ordered. "But listen to him. He knows what to do." The battle began almost immediately. The relic ships fired plasma bursts that arced through space like bolts of living fire. Shields flared on the Astra veil as Kane guided the crew, issuing commands with calm precision. "Angle the port thrusters. Timing, wait 2 seconds, now." The crew followed, their initial hesitation replaced by determination. Every maneuver Kane suggested worked. Every counterattack succeeded. Even Terran, skeptical from the start, felt a thrill of admiration. This human, this supposed myth, was orchestrating their defense with intelligence and experience that no AI could match. After a tense 15 minutes, the last of the relic ships disengaged. One crashed into an asteroid, another fled into the void. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief. Elira turned to Kane. You saved us. And not with weapons, not with brute force, but with strategy. You are incredible." Kane looked at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Strategy, anticipation, and courage. Humans were not invincible, but we adapted. That is why we survived as long as we did, and why you must adapt now." Over the next days, Kane slowly shared more of his story. He spoke of Earth's final wars, of battles that spanned planets and moons, of enemies so powerful that entire fleets had fallen in hours. He had been part of an elite unit, trained not just to fight but to survive, to lead, and to inspire. As he spoke, Elira realized something remarkable. Kane's presence was changing her crew. Engineers who had only known calculations and procedures now discussed tactics. Pilots experimented with maneuvers they had never dared attempt. Even Elira herself found her own instincts sharpening, guided by Kane's calm judgment. "You make it sound easy," Lieutenant Terran said one evening, after Kane had finished demonstrating a simulated battle. "How did humans ever do it?" Kane looked out at the stars. "We didn't think of it as easy. We thought of it as necessary. Fear was always present, but it never stopped us. We fought not because we wanted glory, but because survival demanded it. Because someone had to stand when no one else would." Elira reflected on his words. That was the difference. Humans did not wait for perfect conditions, did not hesitate when action was required. They acted, and they inspired others to act alongside them. The calm of space soon gave way to unease. Kane's presence and the awakening of an ancient human warrior did not go unnoticed. Sensors picked up faint signals, ships scanning the region, strange energy pulses, messages intercepted from unknown sources. Someone somewhere had realized a human had returned. "Commander," Terran said, worry in his voice, "there are eyes watching us. I don't know who, but they are moving fast. And they know we have Kane." Elira felt a chill. "Then we must act before they do. We cannot let him fall into the wrong hands. The galaxy may have forgotten humans, but we cannot let someone else erase him again." Kane studied the readings silently. "The Conquered does not want humans remembered," he said quietly. "They fear the truth." The power humans had, the enemies we fought. But it does not matter. I will not hide. The galaxy must learn what humanity can do. Elira felt a deep respect for him. She had expected to meet a myth. Instead, she had met a warrior who carried the memory of his species in his every action, who inspired bravery through example. She realized that the galaxy was about to change, not because of politics or technology or power, but because one human had returned to remind everyone what it meant to be alive, to fight, and to endure. As the Astra Veil prepared for its next journey beyond known space, Kane stood beside Elira on the bridge. Stars passed by like silver streaks. The crew was ready. But Elira knew that this was only the beginning. For the first time, she believed the stories of old Earth were true. Humans had been warriors, legends in flesh and blood, and now one of them stood before her, not a myth, not a story, but a living testament to courage and skill. The galaxy waited, and Kane was ready. The Astra Veil moved silently through the darkness of the outer reaches, a region beyond the Concorde's immediate control, where stars were sparse and the space lanes were dangerous. The crew had grown accustomed to Kane's presence. Even the most skeptical among them now followed his instructions without hesitation. Yet with every passing light year, Elira felt the tension grow. Something was stirring beyond the charts, something that did not want humans remembered. Elira stood on the observation deck staring at the twinkling points of distant stars. "Captain Kane," she began cautiously, "we have not received any formal message from the Concorde since your awakening." "That seems unusual." Kane's eyes, dark and calm, met hers. "They are aware of me," he said, "and they are not pleased. The High Council does not want humans in the present. They fear what we represent." "Fear us?" Elira repeated, incredulous. "Humans are extinct. What could they possibly fear?" "History is written by those who survive," Kane replied. "The Council has erased humans from their records because we were too dangerous. They remember what we could do, and they do not want it repeated." Before Elira could respond, the ship's communication system pinged. A transmission appeared on the main display, an official Concorde message, demanding the immediate transfer of Kane for study and preservation. The message was polite, but the threat was unmistakable. Elira's jaw tightened. They want to take him. They want to erase him again. Kane studied the message silently. "We cannot comply," he said. "If we go willingly, the galaxy may forget humanity a second time. I will not allow it." Terran, standing behind Elira, whispered, "Commander, what can we do? The Concorde has the fleet, the resources. We are just one ship." Elira clenched her fists. "Then we will not fight them openly. We will evade them, and we will find the truth that they are trying to hide." For the next several hours, the Astra Veil executed evasive maneuvers under Kane's guidance. He had studied Concorde tactics from the ancient records and anticipated every move the fleet might make. The crew marveled as Kane led them through asteroid fields, magnetic storms, and gravitational anomalies, all while keeping the ship and crew safe. Finally, after slipping past the main patrols, Kane directed them to a hidden sector known only to the oldest explorers. There, amidst shattered moons and drifting debris, lay a secret archive of information untouched by the Concorde for centuries. Inside the archive, Kane and Elira found data logs, star maps, and recordings. Most were corrupted, but fragments told a story that had been carefully hidden. Humans had faced an enemy so vast and powerful that the Concorde had deemed it too dangerous for the galaxy to remember. This enemy, the Voidborn, fed on energy, consumed entire worlds, and had been held at bay only by humanity's final sacrifice. Elira's breath caught as she read the records. This explains everything," she said softly. "The Concorde erased humans from history because they feared the truth. They feared the Voidborn." Kane nodded. "And now the threat returns. The Voidborn are waking again, just as they did before Earth fell." The crew exchanged anxious glances. The galaxy's myths were no longer stories. They were warnings. Suddenly, alarms rang through the Astra Veil. Sensors detected fast-moving ships approaching. Unlike the relic ships from before, these vessels were sleek, well-armed, and unmistakably Concorde in design. "They've found us," Terran said, panic creeping into his voice. Elira stood tall. "We cannot let them take Kane. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." "Kane, guide us." Kane moved to the command console, his hands flying over the controls with precision. They rely on numbers, formations, and automated patterns. Humans can think outside patterns. That is our advantage. Trust me and follow my lead. The battle began in the black void. Conquered ships fired plasma arrays attempting to disable the Astra veil. Kane anticipated each strike, instructing the crew to tilt the ship, use the debris fields for cover, and return countermeasures. The crew's confidence grew under his direction. Now, Kane shouted, pointing to a narrow passage between asteroids. The Astra veil shot through, narrowly avoiding concentrated fire. A Concorde cruiser followed, but Kane had predicted its path. Using a clever diversion, the cruiser collided with a drifting asteroid, disabling its engines. The crew cheered, but Kane remained focused. Do not celebrate yet. The Concorde will regroup. We are not safe until we understand their strategy and the truth behind their fear. Elira realized how much she had come to rely on Kane, not just for his skill, but for his instinct, his ability to see patterns in chaos. He is more than a warrior, she thought. He is a teacher, a guide, a reminder of what humanity once was. Over the next days, the crew worked tirelessly to recover more information from the hidden archive. Kane interpreted star maps, translating coordinates and ancient markings. He revealed planets where humans had fought battles no one remembered, secret outposts built to monitor the Voidborn, and records of strategies designed to protect the galaxy at great cost. Through this work, Elira began to see a pattern. The Concorde's fear was not just political, it was survival. They had witnessed the devastation humans could face and feared that humanity's return might awaken both allies and enemies across the galaxy. Commander, Kane said one evening, we are not alone in remembering. Others will come, drawn by what humans represent. Some will want to fight with us, some against. We must be ready for both, Elira nodded. Then we train, we prepare, and we stay ahead. The galaxy may have forgotten humans, but we will not forget ourselves or you, Kane. But even as they planned, shadows moved. Unknown agents observed them from distant moons, sending encrypted messages to the Concorde. Every move the Astra veil made was being monitored. Kane sensed it, though he did not panic. Patience, he said. Rushing leads to mistakes. We will show them what humans can do when the galaxy underestimates them. The crew continued training, guided by Kane's expertise. He taught them tactics, strategy, and even basic human combat philosophy. At first they struggled, skeptical of his old-fashioned methods, but soon they learned the value of improvisation, courage, and thinking beyond programmed instructions. Engineers became fighters, pilots became tacticians, scientists learned to anticipate danger in ways their instruments could not detect. Elira watched the transformation with a sense of pride and awe. Kane was not just reviving a warrior, he was reviving the spirit of action, courage, and resilience. The Astra veil was becoming more than a ship. It was becoming a beacon of hope, a symbol of what humanity could achieve. One night, as the ship drifted silently through the outer reaches, Kane stood beside Elira on the observation deck. The stars were bright, reflecting off the hull of the ship. You see, Kane said quietly, humans were never perfect. We made mistakes, we lost battles, we fell. But we never gave up, and we never allowed fear to control us. That is why the galaxy feared us. That is why we were erased. Elira turned to him. And now? What will we do? Kane looked out into the darkness, his expression calm yet resolute. Now we prepare. The Voidborn are returning. The Concorde will try to stop us or use us, but we will act. And when the time comes, we will remind the galaxy what humans can do. A sudden alert interrupted them. A scout ship had approached unnoticed, cloaked in the darkness of space. Kane moved immediately, guiding the crew to intercept it. The scout carried a warning. The Concorde's fleet was mobilizing, and their intentions were no longer diplomatic. Elira's heart raced. They are coming, she said. All of them. Kane placed a hand on the console, calm as ever. Then we show them, not with fear, not with threats, but with skill, courage, and determination. That is what humans do, and it is what they will remember. The stars stretched endlessly before them, cold and distant. But aboard the Astra veil, hope burned brightly. A human warrior had returned. The myths of old Earth were alive, and the galaxy would soon learn that humans, though erased from history, had never truly disappeared. Elira took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of inspiration Kane carried. Then let's get ready, she said firmly. The conquered will not take him, and the galaxy will not forget humans again. Kane nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. It has been a long time since someone believed. It is time the galaxy remembered. The ship moved forward into the darkness, shadows of the conquered following, unaware that the legend of humanity had already begun to awaken. The outer reaches were quiet at first, but that calm was deceptive. Reports began to arrive from distant colonies, entire systems experiencing sudden energy drains, starships disappearing without a trace, and worlds whose suns dimmed inexplicably. The Concord dismissed these reports as technical malfunctions or natural phenomena, but Kane saw the truth immediately. "They are returning," he said to Elira, his voice steady yet serious. "The Voidborn are waking. The same enemy that destroyed Earth is coming back." Elira's eyes widened. "The stories, the records you found. This is real?" Kane nodded. "All of it. And if we do not act, countless worlds will fall. The galaxy has forgotten humans, yes, but humans did not forget them. That is why I am here, to prepare the galaxy for what comes." The crew listened in silence. The Voidborn were not a rumor, not a myth. They were an ancient, energy-consuming species, capable of devouring entire star systems. And now, after centuries of slumber, they were awakening once more. Elira turned to her officers. "Then we must prepare. Kane, what do we do first?" Kane studied the star maps and reports. "We train. Every member of this crew must learn to think, move, and fight differently. Humans survived by adapting. It is not enough to rely on technology alone. Courage, strategy, and improvisation, these are our best weapons." Over the following weeks, Kane led intensive training sessions. The crew practiced combat maneuvers, emergency procedures, and rapid decision-making exercises. He taught them how to anticipate attacks, how to use their environment strategically, and how to trust both instinct and intellect. At first, some crew members struggled. Pilots had never thought beyond programmed navigation. Engineers had never imagined using tools as weapons or defenses. But Kane's patience and guidance transformed them. Slowly, they began to act with confidence, taking initiative and learning to adapt to unpredictable situations. Elira observed this transformation with pride. Kane was more than a warrior. He was a mentor, a teacher, and a living reminder of what humans could achieve. His presence inspired not only skill but courage, even in the darkest moments. Meanwhile, reports of the Voidborn grew more urgent. A nearby colony system, Lysera, had vanished entirely. No ships returned, no communication signals were detected, and the system's sun had begun to dim. The Conquered remained hesitant to intervene, but Kane insisted on investigating. "We cannot wait for permission," he told Elira. "If we do, it will be too late. Humans never waited. We act." The Astravale approached Lysera cautiously. Sensors showed no life, but faint energy traces lingered in the system. Kane scanned the readings, his eyes narrowing. "They have already been here. The Voidborn harvest energy. They consume entire systems to sustain themselves. This colony is gone." The crew shivered at the sight of the once thriving system reduced to a ghost of energy and light. The sun flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows across the ship's deck. Kane's expression was calm but grim. "We are next if we do not act." Elira felt a chill. The stories of humans fighting against impossible odds were no longer distant myths. They were instructions. Kane's humanity, his experience, and his will to survive became a guide for the crew. They realized that survival required not just weapons but strategy, courage, and teamwork. Kane led them to a nearby asteroid field to prepare for an ambush. "The Voidborn will not attack blindly," he explained. "They sense energy, movement, and emotion. We must be careful, but we can use that against them. The galaxy underestimates humans, and that is our advantage." The crew worked tirelessly to fortify the Astra Veil and nearby satellites. Kane taught them to set traps, use the terrain, and anticipate attacks. Even the youngest officers learned to trust their instincts, guided by Kane's calm and steady presence. Then, the first sign of the Voidborn appeared. A massive shadow moved through space, consuming energy from nearby stars and leaving entire systems in darkness. The entity was enormous, its presence overwhelming, yet Kane remained composed. "This is what humans faced before Earth fell," he said quietly. "And this is why the galaxy must remember us. Elira's crew braced themselves as the Voidborn drew closer. Its energy signature pulsed with destructive force, and the sensors struggled to measure its size. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, an entity of living energy, vast and unstoppable. Kane issued precise commands. Deploy the drones to distract it. Use the asteroid field to shield the ship. Fire only when necessary. Keep calm and trust your instincts. The Astra Veil moved like a living thing, dodging energy surges and gliding between massive asteroids. Kane's instructions were clear and precise, and the crew followed without hesitation. Every maneuver, every decision reflected the lessons Kane had taught them. The Voidborn struck with sudden force, energy arcs crashing against the ship's shields. The crew felt the tremor through the hull, but Kane remained calm. Do not panic. Use your training. With Kane's guidance, the crew executed a coordinated counterattack. Drones and energy projectors created illusions, leading the Voidborn into traps. The entity roared, a soundless vibration of pure energy, but the crew held their ground. Kane's strategy worked. They were able to avoid direct destruction while observing the Voidborn's patterns. After hours of careful maneuvering, the Voidborn retreated, disappearing into the darkness. The crew exhaled, exhausted but alive. Kane stood on the bridge, silent, observing the aftermath. Elira approached him. You have saved us again. How can one human face such an enemy and survive? Kane's eyes met hers. Not one human, many humans. And not survival alone. We adapt, we endure, and we fight. That is what humans do. And now, you are learning it too. The crew realized that Kane's lesson was more than survival. It was a philosophy. Courage, strategy, and determination mattered as much as technology. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, but humans had never forgotten themselves. As the ship continued its journey through the outer reaches, Kane and Elira reviewed the data recovered from the Lesara system. Patterns emerged. Voidborn activity was spreading in waves, targeting star systems with high energy output. If left unchecked, entire regions of the galaxy could be consumed. We must warn the conquered, Elira said. They will not believe us, but we have to try. Kane shook his head. The conquered will act only when forced. They fear humans and the truth we carry. We cannot rely on them. We must act first. The galaxy's survival depends on it, Elira understood. The responsibility now rested on them and their crew. Kane's presence had awakened a spark of courage in everyone aboard the Astra Veil. They were ready to fight, to defend, and to remind the galaxy of what humans could do. Night passed aboard the ship, and the stars stretched endlessly outside. Kane moved among the crew, checking on each member, offering advice, encouragement, and sometimes simple reassurance. His presence alone inspired confidence. His calm, disciplined humanity reminded them that even against overwhelming odds, courage and intelligence could prevail. Elira stood on the observation deck once more, watching the stars. The Voidborn are coming, she said softly. And yet, with Kane, with humans, maybe we can face them. Kane joined her, looking out at the darkness. The galaxy has forgotten humans, yes, but humans remember themselves. That memory, that courage, is stronger than any threat. And when the time comes, we will show the Voidborn that even legends can fight back. A distant light blinked on the ship's sensors, another Voidborn scouting party. Kane's eyes narrowed. They test us, he said. Good, let them come. We are ready now. The galaxy will see what humans can do, and we will not fail. The crew prepared once again. Shields were reinforced, drones positioned, and every officer took their station with renewed determination. Kane walked along the deck, speaking to each member in turn, reminding them of their training, of their courage, and of their ability to act when no one else could. For the first time in centuries, humans had returned not as myths, but as a force the galaxy could rely upon, and the Voidborn would soon learn that legends could fight back. The stars ahead were countless, the darkness deep, and the enemy immense. But aboard the Astra Veil, hope burned bright. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy was about to remember why it had once feared and revered them. The Astra Veil drifted at the edge of the dying star system of Varathis. Its twin suns were weak, flickering like dying embers, and the cold void stretched endlessly beyond the ship's shields. Kane stood on the bridge, silent, observing the sensors. The Voidborn were gathering. Their energy signatures pulsed through space like dark waves, devouring anything that came too close. Entire fleets of Concord ships had already fallen. their automated defenses useless against the immense entities. Elira stood beside him. The Concord will not intervene. Even now they doubt us. Kane's dark eyes met hers. Doubt is natural when you forget the past. Humans never doubted themselves even when the universe seemed impossible. That is what we must show them now. The plan was risky, desperate, but Kane had anticipated every detail. The Astra Veil would lead the Voidborn into a collapsing star system. Its immense gravitational pull would trap the entity, consuming it along with the dying sun, ending its threat once and for all. But success required perfect timing, courage, and precision. The crew prepared in silence, each member aware of the stakes. Kane moved among them, offering guidance and encouragement. Engineers double-checked every system. Pilots practiced maneuvers, and weapons officers calibrated every energy projector. Every person aboard the ship had been trained, mentored, and inspired by Kane's presence. This is what humans do, Kane said softly, addressing the crew before the final mission. We act when others hesitate. We fight when others flee, and we endure when hope seems lost. Today you are not just crew members, you are part of a human legacy. Remember that. Elira felt a deep pride and determination. We will not fail, she said. The galaxy will remember humans again. The journey to the collapse point was tense. Voidborn scouts appeared, sensing the Astra Veil's energy. Kane's strategy was flawless. The ship used asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies to maneuver, drawing the scouts closer while avoiding direct engagement. When the scouts attacked, the crew responded with precision, following Kane's guidance to outmaneuver the seemingly unstoppable foes. Hours passed in a blur of tension. Finally, the main entity appeared, a colossal swirling mass of energy, its presence consuming light and radiating power that made the hull of the Astra Veil shudder. The Voidborn's massive form loomed over the system, ready to consume the remaining suns. Kane's voice was calm but commanding. Remember your training. Anticipate its movements, use every resource, and trust your instincts. Humans survive by adapting. Now is the time. The ship weaved through space like a living being. Kane directed the crew to deploy energy lures, decoy satellites, and drone arrays, drawing the Voidborn closer to the gravitational collapse. The crew worked as one, their fear replaced by focus, their doubt replaced by courage. The Voidborn reacted, sensing the trap, and surged toward the Astra Veil. Its energy waves crashed against the ship's shields, shaking the deck and triggering alarms. Kane's steady commands guided the crew through each attack. Now, full thrusters to port. Fire the energy nets. Use the collapse to our advantage. The ship maneuvered perfectly, leading the Voidborn directly into the gravitational field of the dying star. Light bent, energy warped, and space itself seemed to pull the entity toward its doom. The crew held their positions, hearts racing as the entity struggled against the inevitable. Kane turned to Elira. This is our moment. Once it falls, countless worlds will be safe. Humanity's courage will echo across the galaxy. The Voidborn roared, or at least the vibration of its energy suggested a sound of fury and resistance. But it was too late. The star's collapse began, and the immense gravitational force engulfed the entity. The energy pulses became erratic, then chaotic, and finally dissipated into the consuming mass. The crew cheered, relief washing over them. For the first time in centuries, the Voidborn's threat had been neutralized. Kane allowed himself a small smile, but his thoughts were already ahead. The galaxy must remember this. They must remember humans, not as conquerors, but as protectors who stood when no one else could. The Astra Veil barely escaped the gravitational pull, emerging into calm space once more. The ship's systems were battered, but the crew was alive. Elira turned to Kane, eyes shining. You led us through impossible odds. How can we ever repay you? Kane looked at her, his expression serene. By remembering. By telling the story. By ensuring the galaxy never forgets that humans once stood and can stand again when needed. The message was clear. Humanity's legacy was not just in battles won, but in courage, ingenuity, and the will to act when others hesitated. Kane's presence had reminded the galaxy of what had been lost and what could be regained. The conquered arrived too late, their fleets hesitant in the aftermath. They had witnessed the Voidborn's defeat but could not deny Kane's role, nor the transformation of the Astra Veil's crew. Statues, songs, and records would later honor humans, not as extinct myths but as warriors, thinkers, and protectors. Elira spoke to the conquered officials. This human is proof. Humans were real. Humans were warriors. And they can inspire courage even now if we remember them. The Council could not deny the truth. Kane's leadership, strategy, and courage had saved countless worlds. The galaxy finally remembered. Days later, the Astra Veil returned to a friendly system, battered but victorious. Kane moved quietly among the crew, ensuring all were safe, checking on each officer, offering advice and encouragement. Though exhausted, he remained a figure of calm, strength, and inspiration. Elira approached him privately. "Captain Kane, you have done more than survive. You have reminded the galaxy of what humans can do. But what will you do now?" Kane gazed at the stars far beyond the system they had saved. "I do not know. Humans are gone, yes, but perhaps not entirely. I may continue or I may rest. The important thing is that humanity's memory lives on. That is what matters." Elira nodded, understanding the depth of his words. Kane was not just a warrior, he was a symbol. The spark of humanity, long thought lost, had been reignited. A final message was recorded by Kane for the conquered, a reminder of humanity's courage, its adaptability, and its willingness to stand against impossible odds. "When the galaxy faces darkness," he said, "remember those who faced impossible battles and never gave up." That is the human legacy. As the crew gathered for the final debrief, a faint signal blinked in the distance. Kane studied it. His lips curved into a faint smile. The signal bore a human insignia. Perhaps somewhere others had survived. Perhaps the story was not over. Elira looked at Kane, admiration and respect in her eyes. "Humans may be myths to some, but not to us. Not anymore." Kane's gaze returned to the stars. "Legends are born when courage meets necessity. Today, humanity has proven once again that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy we can shine, and that light will never be forgotten." The stars stretched endlessly, the galaxy vast and filled with possibilities. And aboard the Astra Veil, hope burned brighter than ever. Humanity's story was no longer a myth. It was alive, guiding, and ready to inspire a galaxy that had long forgotten its greatest warriors. Somewhere, far beyond the edge of explored space, a faint beacon flickered, its light a signal, a promise, and a challenge. The human spirit had returned, and the galaxy would never forget it again.